You are not lost. You are not broken. What you feel, the weight that seems unbearable, the compulsions that pull you away from yourself, the endless search for something more. This is not a flaw. It is not madness. It is pain. And all pain has a story. Carl Jung, a pioneer of understanding the human soul, once said that many of our vices are not just destructive habits. They are attempts to fill a void, to seek something sacred. In a letter to the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, Jung wrote that addiction is a frustrated spiritual quest. It's the soul searching for meaning, for transcendence, for wholeness, and settling instead for fleeting moments of escape. Alcohol, drugs, work, endless scrolling, or anything that offers temporary relief. Jung called this struggle spiritus contra spiritum, the false spirit of substances warring with the true spirit within. But let's be clear, addiction is not a choice. It's not a failure. As Dr. Gabor Maté, a renowned physician and trauma expert, says, the question is not why the addiction. The question is why the pain. When we talk about addiction, we're not talking about the problem itself, but the solution someone has found to cope with wounds that remain unseen. Addiction is a symptom, a survival mechanism. If we look closely, we can see the origin of this pain, traces of it in childhood, in trauma, in the subtle but profound disconnections we experience throughout life. If you're listening to this, maybe you've felt it too. That endless hunger for something to fill the emptiness. Maybe you've looked for answers in a bottle, in a screen, in the applause of others. But no matter how much you consume, the hunger remains. In Buddhist teachings, there's a metaphor for this, the realm of hungry ghosts. These are beings with enormous stomachs and tiny mouths, always ravenous but never satisfied. Dr. Maté uses this metaphor to describe addiction, a desperate, insatiable longing for connection, for meaning, for belonging. And perhaps you've asked yourself, is there a way out? Let me tell you this. There is a path, but it begins with understanding. Not judgment, not punishment, but clarity. Addiction is not the disease. It's a symptom. Pain is not the end. It's a call to transformation. Before addiction, there was pain. Before the substance, the habit, the compulsion, there was a wound. Dr. Maté spent years working with those society often overlooks. Chronic drug users, individuals struggling on the margins, people weighed down by immense suffering. What he found was universal. Each person carried an emotional scar, often invisible but deeply felt. Abuse, neglect, rejection, or simply the absence of love. These experiences leave an imprint on the brain, shaping how it copes with the world. And for many, addiction becomes the salve, not for pleasure, but for relief, a way to anesthetize the ache that feels unbearable. Addiction isn't a lack of willpower, it's the brain trying to survive. When you use a substance or engage in compulsive behavior, your brain releases dopamine, the chemical of reward and relief. For a moment, the world seems okay. The pain quiets, but it doesn't last, because addiction isn't about the substance itself. It's about what's missing. It's about the inner child who never felt safe, who learned to hide their pain because no one was there to see it. Jung believed that addiction is a spiritual problem. When we lose touch with our inner self, we search for substitutes, and in that search, we sometimes lose our way. What if I told you the answer isn't out there? Not in the next drink, the next high, the next purchase, the next distraction. What if the answer has been within you all along? Jung called addiction a misguided attempt to seek the sacred. when we feel disconnected from ourselves, from our purpose, from life itself. We reach for something to fill the void. But the problem isn't the desire. It's where we look to satisfy it. The substance, the habit, the escape. They're not the enemy. They're messengers, signs pointing to what needs healing. Addiction is the shadow crying out for light. The shadow is everything we've denied, repressed, or forgotten. It's the anger we were told not to feel, the vulnerability we were shamed for showing, the dreams we abandoned because we were afraid to fail. The more we push these parts of ourselves away, the more power they gain over us. Jung said, "What you resist persists." The shadow doesn't disappear when we ignore it. It grows, and often it manifests as compulsion, as addiction, as behaviors we can't seem to control. But what if we stopped resisting? What if instead of fighting the shadow, we turned toward it? Healing begins with courage. The courage to face what you've been running from. The courage to feel the pain, the fear, the shame. Not to punish yourself, but to understand yourself. It's not easy, it's not quick, but it's worth it.